I keep noticing this strange thing that happens in conversations now. Not all conversations, obviously. You can still talk about bin day or what everyone's having for tea without accidentally starting a moral emergency. But the minute a topic gets anywhere near feminism, immigration, religion, race, gender, free speech, national identity, parenting, schools, anything with cultural heat around it, the conversation can change shape really quickly. You might begin with what sounds like a normal question. Something like, is that policy actually working? Or where did that statistic come from? Or are we allowed to talk about the trade-offs here? And almost immediately, the question stops being treated as a question. It becomes evidence. Evidence of what side you are on, evidence of what kind of person you might be, evidence of whether you are safe, suspect, enlightened, dangerous, compassionate, hateful, brave, cowardly, one of us, one of them. And that is the bit I find interesting. Because once a conversation gets to that point, it is not really a conversation anymore. It is a kind of social test. We all know this feeling, don't we? It is not just something that happens on the internet, although the internet has definitely made it more dramatic and more searchable, which is a terrible combination. It happens at dinner tables. Someone says something slightly clumsy, and you can almost feel the room take a breath. It happens in family WhatsApp groups where someone types a message, deletes it, types it again, adds 3 qualifiers and a nervous laughing emoji, and then decides actually, no, life is short, leave it. It happens at work as well. People say things that are technically their opinions, but you can tell they have been through several rounds of internal legal review before leaving the mouth. And at the school gate, or in friend groups, or in comment sections, people are constantly doing this tiny calculation. What do I really think? What am I allowed to say? And what will people assume about me if I say it badly? That is exhausting, and it's also very human, because the fear is not usually someone will disagree with me. Most of us can survive disagreement. The fear is someone will decide who I am. There is a concept in political psychology that helps explain this. It is called identity protective cognition, which is a slightly academic way of saying, we often process information in ways that protect our place in a group. And that makes sense, really. We like to imagine that we are all these calm, rational, little evidence machines walking around collecting facts and updating our beliefs like software. But on morally charged issues, we are usually doing something much messier. We are not only asking, is this true? We are also asking, if I accept this, what does it say about me? What does it say about my side? What does it mean for the people I care about? What would happen if I said this out loud? So a claim about immigration is not just a claim about borders or labor markets. It can feel like a claim about compassion, racism, safety, sovereignty, class pressure, fairness, or national identity. A claim about feminism is not just a claim about work or law or family. It can feel like a claim about women's dignity, men's status, motherhood, power, resentment, care, freedom, all of it. The sentence arrives with baggage. Sometimes an entire moral universe walks in behind it. And this is where I think we have to be careful, because it would be too easy to say, oh, everyone is just too sensitive now and leave it there. But I don't think that is honest. Some topics are sensitive because they touch real things: laws, rights, safety, dignity, speech, belief, family life, social status, whether people feel they belong in public. For some people, these debates are not abstract. They are not little intellectual games. They are attached to their lives. And also, not every question is innocent. Sometimes people do hide cruelty inside polite language. Sometimes I'm just asking questions really does mean I would like to make this prejudice sound thoughtful. So the protective instinct is not imaginary. There are reasons people become guarded. But there is another danger on the other side of that. If every difficult question is treated as an attack, then inquiry starts to become socially impossible. People do not necessarily become kinder or wiser. They become more careful. They learn the approved phrases. They learn where the traps are. They learn which doubts can be spoken and which ones have to be moved into private rooms. And that does not create trust. It creates performance. You can see this on the left and on the right, although each side tends to be very good at spotting it in the other and mysteriously less good at spotting it in itself. On parts of the left, the moral language is often about harm, safety, equality, inclusion, dignity, and protection from oppression. At its best, that language has helped society see things it used to ignore. It has named harms that were once brushed off as normal. It has asked whether neutrality was sometimes just power with better manners. That matters. But at its worst, the same language can make disagreement feel like violence, questions feel like attacks, and hesitation feel like betrayal. On parts of the right, the moral language is often about liberty, family, faith, nation, tradition, order, children, merit, and free speech. At its best, that language protects conscience, pluralism, and limits on institutional overreach. It notices that rapid change can make people feel disoriented, and that ordinary people do not always experience progress as neatly as campaign slogans suggest. That matters too. But at its worst, it can turn dissent into disloyalty, treat minorities as symbols of decline, or defend free speech very loudly until the speech becomes inconvenient for its own side. So I don't think this is a story about one rational side and one irrational side. I think it is a story about moral communities defending themselves. And I think this is the distinction we are starting to lose. Because asking whether an argument holds up is not the same as saying the argument is good. Asking where the evidence came from is not the same as denying someone's experience. Asking where a boundary should sit is not the same as pretending no harm exists. Asking whether a punishment is proportionate is not the same as defending the thing being punished. But online and increasingly offline too, those things get collapsed into one another very quickly. Examination becomes endorsement, curiosity becomes suspicion, nuance becomes cowardice. And before long, people are not responding to what was actually said. They are responding to what they think the sentence reveals. And to be fair, sometimes people are revealing something. Language is not neutral. Patterns matter. Context matters. But if we lose the ability to separate inquiry from attack, then we lose something important. We lose the space where people can think before they know exactly what they think. Then social media comes in and pours petrol on the whole thing. It did not invent tribalism. Humans were doing that very efficiently long before Wi-Fi. But it did change the incentives. It changed the speed, the scale, the audience, and the reward system. Outrage travels beautifully online. Certainty travels beautifully. Humiliation travels beautifully. A really clean moral takedown can move around the internet like it has been given its own little engine. Nuance does less well. Nuance is there in the corner with a tote bag and a long explanation, trying to get everyone to read the footnotes. It is not built for the format. And people learn from incentives. If the version of you that gets rewarded is the angriest, purest, sharpest, most contemptuous version, then eventually you may start becoming that version in public. Not because you are fake, necessarily, but because social life trains behavior. The internet teaches us what gets applause, and then we pretend the applause has nothing to do with who we become. The part I keep coming back to is not just the noise, it is the silence. Because the public conversation is not only full of loud, certain people, it is also missing a lot of thoughtful, uncertain people. People who agree with one side's concern, but not its cruelty. People who agree with the other side's warning, but not its solution. People who are not hateful or stupid or cowardly, but who have learned that being misunderstood is expensive. So they stop speaking, or they speak only in very safe rooms, or they say the thing they are expected to say and keep the more complicated thought to themselves. And then something strange happens. The loudest people start to look like the public. The most reckless people become the visible debate. The careful people vanish, and then everyone uses the visible debate as proof that the other side is exactly as awful as they thought. That is a very bad feedback loop. So maybe the better question is not, why is everyone else so irrational? Maybe the better question is, what am I protecting when I become certain? Am I defending a principle, or am I protecting a team? Am I asking for accountability, or am I enjoying punishment? Am I calling something harmful because it causes harm, or because it threatens my certainty? Am I defending free speech Because I believe in open debate, or because I do not want consequences for people I already agree with? And maybe the most uncomfortable one is, what would I believe if my own group were not watching? Because once morality fuses with identity, changing your mind does not feel like learning. It feels like betrayal. It feels like walking out of a room where everyone knows your name. That is why people cling so tightly to the approved version of the story. Not always because they are convinced, sometimes because they are afraid of what doubt might cost them. I don't think the answer is to become less moral. Some sensitivity is moral intelligence, some boundaries are necessary, some claims really are false, cruel, or dangerous. But I do think we need to become less easily manipulated by our own morality. Because if every disagreement becomes a verdict on character, only the most reckless people will keep speaking. And if only the most reckless people keep speaking, eventually the rest of us will mistake the noise for the public. So the question is not, how do we make everyone less sensitive? The better question is, how do we build a culture where sensitivity does not require censorship and courage does not require cruelty? How do we protect people without making inquiry impossible? How do we defend free speech without pretending speech has no consequences? How do we hold people accountable without turning punishment into belonging? And maybe the biggest question is this: can we learn to hear an argument without immediately asking which tribe it serves?